All right. I am stopping showing the everything.
Now you're just showing your email.
Ha ha ha. Trick question. I don't have email up.
We have email? When did that happen?
It didn't. Just kidding.
I was meeting with a girlfriend last week. So there's a Google office in Chicago that's not too far from me, and her role is she's enterprise clients, so she's reaching out to clients that are 1,000 or plus employees, and her role is to get these enterprise clients to rip out Microsoft, including PowerPoint and Excel and those things, and put in Google, right? And and when you said something about email, I was like, that would be a really tough sell, especially when you're talking about these enterprise corporations that are they use those. They're not really using, too many Google apps, and if they do, they're probably doing it personally. And these startups are using it, sure, but when they grow bigger, are they going to be moving to Microsoft products, or are they going to be forever Google users?
I don't know. I think Google, especially like Google Docs and the sharing in there, really kind of only works well with a small group of people. I don't think it works too well when you have a large group of people doing things, just because it's like anarchy in the Google Docs.
Well, and good luck removing Excel from business people. I mean, it's like cold dead hands times, right? I mean,
yeah.
Well, I think all of the Office products kind of generally would be cold dead hands.
I need my PowerPoint list, my white background, and my Arial fonts.
Have you guys tried OneNote or any of the Microsoft products? We use Google.
Nah.
I use OneNote.
I use OneNote, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I use it mainly for the screen clipping feature. I love that feature. I have Snagit for clients, but if I'm just taking a quick screenshot, I love OneNote's screen clipping.
Angie, I'm passing presenter over to you, so you should be able to do something.
I use screenshot for or screenshot for screen clipping. Free, works fine for what I need.
Nice shirt.
Now let's see if I can get it to autoplay since I forgot.
Oh, look it looks good.
There.
It's on autoplay.
Yay!
I know, I'm not sure either.
Autoplay is on the PowerPoint thing
itself.
itself. It's like down in the corner. It's like it actually kind of looks like a drop-down screen. It says slideshow when you hover over it. It's right next to the Zoom bar.
Okay.
The questions are in the way.
Yeah. Okay. It's 11:18. We're not
Red tapes are coming.
Oh, it's going on its own.
Yay!
Yes, perfect.
There we go.
How many consultants does it take? I swear.
2.
Oh boy. All right. What do we know about encryption? Dun, dun, dun. Many things.
What sort of encryption?
All right.
Lots of things are encrypted.
So Fred asks, when using column encryption, what is the best way to secure the certificate? Can it be removed from the server and re-imported when decryption is needed?
Yeah, you gotta back those up, and you can keep those back them up, and you can stick them on a thumb drive and stick them in like multiple thumb drives and put them in a safe somewhere, and then you can bring them on back and whenever you need them.
Oh, gotcha. Let's see. Is Microsoft trying to push everyone to Azure with their obscene pricing schedule on SQL Server Enterprise? That's not a question.
Yes, and it's still not going too well. Even with those stretch tables, I don't think you're going to see a ton of Azure adoption. I don't know.
It's still not as expensive as Oracle.
No, that's true. Oracle is still 47.5 thousand US dollars per 0.75 cores. So do the math on that.
Boy, are you still? What'd you say?
What you talking about, Willis?
Are you still doing some Oracle research on the side, Eric?
Yeah, when I can. It's fun to look at, but SQL Server is my baby.
Let's see. Jeff asked, do you need to license both nodes of a Windows cluster? Speaking of licensing.
If you want to fail over, I do believe so. Angie, I can see your, there you go.
I was tabbing over. I lost everything from the webinar.
Let's see. Jennifer says, do you guys want to talk about if you like contained databases or not?
Or not. Done.
Or not. Yeah, or not.
The only thing I like about contained databases is they break all sorts of features that I hate, like replication. So I'm in favor of them breaking replication. I'm just don't know if I'm really in favor of them generally. They're okay. I don't know. If you're going to use them for something neat. If you really, I mean, how often do you move databases around to different servers?
What are contained databases?
It's a way of sort of making databases an island unto themselves, so they're less reliant on the server they're on, and they contain most of the information that they would need to function and operate normally. You can bring that around with them anywhere they go.
Gotcha. Let's see. A question from Joshua. He says, SQL 2014 or 2016, are there any major audit feature changes?
Not that I've heard of. No, not that I've heard of.
You were dancing when I said 2016. Are you looking forward to that? Is there anything?
Oh, that was my 2016 release party dance. I'm getting ready for it. It looks startlingly like every other dance I do. That's also my drunk on an airplane dance.
When is that coming out? Do they have a release date for general release?
Not yet. RC2 is dropping fairly soon, I believe. So hopefully, I don't know how many release candidates they're planning on before the real thing comes out. But they're still adding features. Like some stuff still isn't ready. Some stuff still isn't included. Some stuff still wasn't in RC1. So maybe a while. I wouldn't hold your breath. Trained in breath holding.
Let's see. Jeff, there's a lot of Jeffs today. Mayor says, I have a table with multiple columns of XML data type that I need to archive. Moving the data is painfully slow. Am I missing something?
Nope.
That's just what it is.
XML is a big old blob of a data type, and you know what? I mean, you could. It makes it a little bit less painful if you store it as in varchar max. I believe Jeremiah talking about once upon a when, but you know, then you kind of lose the XML-ness of it. So if you're archiving it and you're not going to be querying it as XML any longer, or you can take some other, you know, secondary step to convert it to XML and then query it, then storing it as an varchar kind of makes things less, in varchar max makes things a little bit less crappy.
A little bit less crappy.
Slightly.
Decrapify?
Let's see. Question from Thomas. He says, I'm updating to Enterprise on a server on the 16th, then setting up TDE. Can I use self-signed certificate for that, or do I have to purchase one?
You should be able to create your own certificate. I don't know much. I'm actually a little unclear on the question.
Okay. On my strike, clarify your question. All right. This is a good one.
All right.
Garrett Smith asked, what was the most difficult part about developing SP Blitz? How long did it take to create in its initial release? No one knew it would release.
Yeah, no. Brent, you're here, so.
Yes. Well, is today's Brent Ozar.
But Erik, you didn't work on it.
I do work on it. For me, the hardest part is figuring out when all the columns and views that we hit came into fruition. Like, because like I remember working with 2008 R2, and there was a lot of stuff that came into 2008 R2 when SP1 dropped. So like there were scripts on some 2008 R2 boxes that wouldn't work, and on 2008 R2 SP1 they would work. So for me, a lot of the challenge is like, okay, when did this dynamic management view? When was it released? When was this column added? You know, when did they start tracking this thing or that? There's just like a lot of for me the hardest part is figuring out you know, what I can query for what. And then the thing that's really stinks for me is that like there's no real like one-to-one, like when these features come out, they haven't like replaced something. Like there's no way to also figure this problem or this setting out for a past version. So like, you know, there's some stuff where like I'd really love to be able to tell someone on 2008 R2 if, you know, X, Y, and Z are issues, but I can't because we're not tracking them yet.
Are there any updates in the pipeline or anything that people are complaining about?
Anything anyone is complaining about? Not that I'm aware of.
We don't have many tickets on SP Blitz, do we? Do you monitor those?
Yeah, I watch GitHub for that stuff coming in. No, nothing new. We crammed a lot of stuff into the last release, and so it's going to be a little while before. Like we need some new stuff to look at before we, you know, add new features. So, you know, if there's something you guys want to see, submit it.
Yeah.
Something you guys are interested in tracking.
Let's see, a lot of questions about upgrades today, or comments on upgrades. Christopher Roberts is saying, we're going to upgrade to 2008. Oh, so we want to upgrade from 2008 R2. Should we wait for 2016 or just go with 2014?
Well, the interesting part there is that for 2014, it's sort of last minute and sort of thanks to Brent's giant pokey hand, Microsoft upped the RAM limit for 2014 from 64 gigs to 128 gigs on Standard Edition. I don't know if there's anything similar is going to happen for 2016, but if you're on Standard Edition and you're looking to stay on Standard, you may want to hold off till 2016, especially if you have a lot of data and, you know, you might see a change in how Standard Edition is licensed. If you're on Enterprise and you're using a bunch of cool enterprisey features, then I would absolutely wait until 2016 because a lot of things got bigger and better and cooler in 2016. You know, like column store and nothing much related for compression, but availability groups got all sorts of cool stuff. There's gonna be parallel log redos and whatnot. So
query store.
Yeah, query store is pretty awesome.
All right, I'm gonna ask this question and then I'm gonna go grab a charger for my laptop somewhere because it's about to die.
Okay.
You might have to ask yourself the next question. Okay. This one's from Tom Hacking. Great last name. SQL Server 2012. I have a database that requires specific server settings, and currently we set up a separate server to accommodate this one database. The specific setting is nested triggers enabled. Could I use a contained database and put this database on our server with other databases?
You know what? I'm not sure. I haven't looked at contained databases and what settings they encompass all that carefully. I know that 2016 does have a number of database scope settings, but that doesn't help you on 2012. So it might help you down the line in 2016. I would just take a look at the contained database spec sheet and see what settings it can contain. You could also just try testing it out in your environment because you have your environment, and I don't have your environment.
What if you don't have a test environment?
Test and prod like everyone else.
No.
SQL Server Developer Edition is about $50 on Amazon. If you don't have a development environment, you don't have any excuses. It's very easy to get that.
All right. More encryption questions. This one is from Ben. He said, I was requested to look into encrypting between DB and app tier. Where can I find info about this? Already encrypted between app and web.
Richie, you look antsy.
Yeah, that's a hard one, right? I mean, I guess you could always do HTTPS, right? I mean, that will encrypt it for you. I know a lot of cloud providers who just do it that way, just HTTPS. I've been looking into a lot of cloudy type stuff, and they handle it both ways, where they actually have software that your custom software would encrypt it locally and then shove it up into the cloud where it would go and do all that encrypty stuff. But I think if you just want to use SQL Server, I believe HTTPS is almost the only way you can do it.
End-to-end encryption is tough because there's a lot of stuff you have to consider as far as like, like if you start sending in searches, you can no longer do like, big scans of all your columns because it's encrypted. And if you send in like someone's last name, it's, you're all of a sudden decrypting that entire column and exposing like all of the Smiths. You may not want to do that.
Yeah, I'm not an encryption expert either, so I know enough to have dabbled into it, but I'm a novice like I guess the rest of us.
Yeah.
All right. Has anybody here converted DTS to SSIS? Ever? Any experience there?
I still have not opened SSIS.
Ever.
I didn't really ever touch it either.
Okay. Well, there's someone here that's converting it. So if any of our audience members know.
Yeah, when we this was years ago. Oh my gosh, this was years ago and many jobs ago. When we did that, we essentially rewrote everything. Like there wasn't any transfer. We just rewrote everything in SSIS and it was done. But that was what we decided to do. Maybe there's tools out there that would help can do the conversion for you now. But we did that really early on in SSIS's career. So yeah, I've got no help for you. I would just consider rewriting it, but I'm sure there's tools. Maybe there's someone on Twitter that can help out. Maybe it's SQL help.
So far, our attendees pretty much all say it sucks and try rewriting it. For those on the podcast that can't see the questions.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy for agreeing with me. Thank you very much.
Oh boy. All right. Yeah, everybody's saying it's a major pain. Let's see. Did database compression get added in standard edition for either 2014 or 2016 editions? Does anybody know?
For standard, I don't think so. I assume you're talking about page and row compression since backup compression's been around for everything forever. But
don't know. All right. Let's see. Are there any free web-based cloud like Azure where we can create a test server to use for a demo presentation?
Free.
Yeah. Free.
You can set up some really small, really free servers on just about any cloud provider. I bet, as soon as you start using them, it's going to cost you money.
You're going to pay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I've been through most of these questions.
Greg has one, Jessica.
Go ahead, read it.
Okay. Greg wants to know if there's such a thing as too much TempDB for space.
Did you have an answer for that, or am I going?
You. Yeah. No, I'm just, helping keep the flow going.
Yeah, probably. At some point, it becomes wasteful. I would say that, for TempDB, you could kind of almost size it as like the size of a log file, except for all of your files. So like, right now, if you have like, a database, right, and you have the largest object in your database is 100 gigs, 150 gigs of TempDB is good. So then no matter which TempDB file or files an index rebuild on that hits, you sort in TempDB. If you do, any big operations on that table, you have to suck everything into a temp table for something. You at least have the option then to have everything hit TempDB cleanly. If you have more than that, it's not really going to help you a lot. So I would say, size it sort of the way you would size anything else and kind of have it, be at least somewhat relevant to the size of your data. If you have 20 gigs of data, you probably don't need 200 gigs of TempDB.
One of the top things that I hear from clients when they initially reach out to us is that they're either TempDB or their log files are growing out of control.
It's called monitoring. Should get you some of that.
That's hot. That's the hotness.
Jessica, Thomas clarified for the TDE question with the self-signed certificate. Mm-hmm. He said that he's installing TDE and he knows that it requires certificates, but he wanted to know if you have to get a separate certificate authority. But I think my interaction with it, it's just something you do during the setup. You don't have to get, it's not like a website certificate. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like like a website certificate. You create your own certificate. You give it a, you give it a password, and it'll give you a key and everything.
Just back them up.
You'll live
Read
happily ever
lots.
after.
There's some good information out there on books online about because I've tried to back up from TDE and encrypting and unencrypting, moving the databases with TDE around before, and just read a bunch of information. You need to make sure all your keys are backed up, that they're on the server, that they match. Otherwise, your database will be, your backups and things will be without, they'll just be blocks of wood.
Well, while we're on the TDE issue, our topic, Garrett Smith says, for a TDE encrypted database, is it possible for any software to do an object level restore?
I don't know. I've honestly never used TDE out in the wild, and I've never used it along with something like Dell Lightspeed that does object level restores. So test it and let me know. I'd be interested as well.
All right. Greg wants to know, how much server memory, RAM, do you see on most clients with very large databases?
Not enough.
Is it
Just
over?
why they're calling us. So if you have over 10 terabytes of data on a single server and it's spread across multiple databases, I would start looking at spreading that data out to multiple servers. There's no server in existence for, at least for SQL Server, that can handle 10 terabytes of data or 10 terabytes of memory currently. The name of the SQL game is caching data in memory. So if you have 10 terabytes of data, unless you have a really expensive server with, even 2 to 4 terabytes of data, you're probably still not caching all the hot stuff unless you have a lot of data that you can really archive and shouldn't be there in the first place. So, a few things to consider. One, how much of your data is active? How much churn are you seeing? Is PLE pretty steadily above the, a good number like, 10,000, or is it like constantly down in the low hundreds? These are things that I would start looking at. And also, again, if you have this data spread across multiple databases, you can either look at whether all of that data needs to remain online, whether it can be archived off, or whether all these databases really need to exist on the same server. You can start spreading them out so that you can start caching more of your RAM.
Yeah, the last VLDB database that I worked on was 60 terabytes. I believe it had 256 gigs of memory. But again, the patterns of data wasn't, like you said, Eric, it wasn't active. I mean, we were dealing with like a day, 24-hour periods worth of data at a time, and maybe a month, and then that was it. And then that was, all that data was moved off into different data warehouses and things like that. So they hadn't gotten around to like an archive strategy or anything like that. They just kind of let this monster grow. So, but we hadn't worried. I mean, we really run into any memory issues because of the way we were using the data.
Just beyond memory, just from like a purely from a maintenance perspective, getting that all DBCC checked, getting maintenance run on it, just, all that stuff you have to do to keep a SQL database sort of buzzing along happily becomes really difficult when you have 10 terabytes sitting in one spot.
Yep.
All right. Question from Brian Fain. Yes, I have a software written by a third party that runs in SharePoint. I do not have a source code. When the software runs a query to generate a list of quotes to edit, it takes 10 to 12 seconds for that list to generate. How can I see if the query that ran is causing the slowness of generating the list in the web browser? I am on SQL 2012 Enterprise. I ran SP Ask Brent, and created 2 indexes that it suggested.
Monitoring.
That word again. What's monitoring?
I mean, you could run a trace. You could use extended events to see what's going on. You can capture wait stats and execution plans and all sorts of other stuff if you want. I don't have anything offhand to give you on it, but those are directions you can go in.
I didn't hear him mention Blitz cache, so maybe run Blitz cache.
Yeah, you could. But I think it seems like he has one specific thing that is running slowly, and he wants to see which part of it is the slowest. So I don't think Blitz cache is going to be the most helpful there. It's gonna be extended events or running a trace, and maybe even grabbing some execution plans.
Fair.
Once you're comfortable with what part is slow.
All right. A question from Erik. He says, regarding transaction logs, do you have a formula for specifying size to start with? And if you use auto growth, do you have a size to use for auto growth?
Yes. Starting size is, so I assume you mean you're starting with a fresh database, right? So if you're starting with a fresh database and you don't know how big it's going to be, I would just make it 25% of the size of your data file. For auto growth, I try to, sort of depending on the size of the database or how big I think the database might be, I'll try to give auto growth either more or less leniency. So I never go with percent for auto growth. For really big databases for the data file, I'll let them grow by a gig, and I'll let the log file grow by like 256 or 512 megs. And then for smaller databases, I'll scale that back, and I'll let the data file grow by like 256 megs, and the log file grow by 64 megs. So start somewhere reasonable. Not every database is destined to be a 10 terabyte giant, but adjust accordingly as you move along. If you find that the files are growing a lot very frequently, then I would up the size so that they grow less often. This could be a big deal, especially for log files, because when log files expand, they don't benefit from instant file initialization the way data files can. If you give your SQL Server's account perform volume maintenance tasks rights on the server, so they have to zero out the space. So so for log files, you don't want them to grow by too much at one time, because those rights pause database activity while the file grows and zeroes things out. And you don't want them growing too often, because then you're looking at a bunch of little pods, like little staccato mosquitoes buzzing and biting you. So I try to come up with a reasonable auto growth size, so that things are growing at a reasonable pace, in a reasonable amount of time.
And you monitor it.
Yes. I sit there and I hit F5 all day.
Let's see. This is a question I haven't heard before regarding always on. Is there a way to have one of the nodes be preferred, so that if it does fail over to a certain server, that it will attempt to fail back to a preferred as soon as it is available and healthy?
Oh, so I mean, you can totally set a list. So you can totally have a list of servers that you want to fail over. That's a tricky one though, because you're talking about as soon as the database that it failed from comes back, the availability group will say, "Oh, you're back. Here's your drink," right? But I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I don't think so offhand, no. I think you would have to bring that server back up and then manually say, okay, going back now.
Is that anything like, isn't there automatic failback with clustering? And you can set preferred nodes, so I don't know if you could leverage that feature in availability groups, but I think that might be what they're.
Yeah. I just really don't think there's a way to, so automatically when that RedNet server comes back up, it would just automatically flip back. Nor do I think I would want that to happen, because then you're looking at another blip in outage, during an uncontrolled time, which would be kind of bad.
Okay, so last question here.
Ooh, make it the one from John.
John? Why? What is it?
Do you want to talk about it?
So that long one? Is that the one you want?
Within query optimizer execution. That one.
I'm not reading that one. That's too long.
All right, I'll read it. Within query optimizer execution plan and performance tuning, usually focus on the highest percentage of cost sections first, or other areas like key lookups, join types, etc. And have you ever analyzed a query that you couldn't tune any further and was already optimized to its best? So here's my magic plan when it comes to looking at execution plans, right? I open up SQL Sentry Plan Explorer, and I look for things that are colored red and orange. And I say, what's happening there? And those are the places that I start on. There's totally some low-hanging fruit like key lookups and, you know, sorts and other stuff that you can look at, or like a big clustered indexing that you can look at first. But also what I pay attention to is the size of the lines going from one place to another. So if I see like a bunch of skinny lines and then a real big fat line going across, or a big fat line and that turns into a real skinny line, then I know that I'm just pushing too much data across at some point, right? So, you know, look at percentages, look at like, you know, where SQL has the cost spread out to, and also look at the size of the data you're bringing across. You know, and then also kind of think logically and rationally about your environment. If you have 10,000 rows joining to 1,000 rows, you probably don't need a hash join. You probably are missing an index that would allow SQL to do a nice merge or nested loops join. And as far as your other question about looking at a query plan that was already optimized to its best, no. Most of the query plans that I've been tasked with looking at were horrible and needed help. So I've looked at them after I've optimized them to their best, but no, not really, not really before.
All right. Well, it's 11:45 Central Time anyways. So that's all we have for today.